Okay. Hello, everybody. Aren't you so excited to talk about this football team? My name is Rodney. I'm back again. Thank you so much for having me, Bleach Report. It's been an absolute blast all year to recap the Raiders live every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And today, you know, I was thinking about if I was going to lead this stream off this way because I made a YouTube video yesterday, uploaded it on my channel, ALLaBorde Raiders. Check that out. Just hit 10,000 subscribers. No big deal. No big deal. It's fine. It is what it is. And I think, yeah, a day later, I feel the same way. I think that was the worst Raider game that I had watched in years. In years. And we'll get into why exactly I feel like that because there have been other games where we've just gotten completely blown out. But this loss was kind of a microcosm of the whole season, but just to like the 10th power. And it kind of took my soul. This is a little spooky Halloween season. It took my soul, buried it in the ground, never to be seen again. It was a dark place that I was going to yesterday, and we'll recap it all. And as we start getting people here in the live chat for Bleacher Report, I just want to thank you for joining and watching me. And I'm going to do my best to somehow distract you from the pain of being a Raider fan. I didn't even do my helmet. See, I didn't even start the glowing helmet thing. I'm going to do it right now while we're talking about it because sometimes these things happen. Okay. So I'm going to do my best to distract you from you know, the turmoil of being a Raider fan while simultaneously talking about the exact turmoil that we are all feeling. The Raiders lose to the Rams 20-15. That was the score, right? We'd like to wipe that from the memory. This is also going to be interesting to see if I could do this live without any hiccups. You got to remove this little tool. Oh, how satisfying was that? And now we give it a little spit. That was too much. Okay, here we go. Okay, the Rams lose, or the Raiders lose, and we're going to jump right into the box score as we get people here in the chat starting to discuss just how upset they are with how the season's gone because it's fallen off the rails fast. So let's pull up this box score. And you know what's interesting about this box score, right? What do you think I'm going to say? Because I say the same thing every single week. And that is if you just look at the box score, you think the Raiders maybe won this game. But alas, they weren't even close, even though the score will tell you otherwise. And as we take a look, I mean, we led them in passing yards, we led them in rushing yards, yards per play. They were a little bit better. We had more first downs. We had more time of possession. I mean, it was the turnovers yet again. Another week where the turnovers absolutely destroy us, and that's becoming a serious problem. And that's again, I've been saying it for weeks. That's on the coaching. Like I understand that Gardner Minshew being responsible for 4 turnovers, like at a certain point, you're just a bad football player. And Antonio Pierce, like, what are you supposed to do in that situation? But I mean, I don't even know what to say. Like the time of possession, we had the ball so much longer than the Rams did, and we got 5 field goals to show for it. Even on that Nate Hobbs interception, I was like, if he doesn't score, that's going to be a problem for us. And he didn't score, and we couldn't get in. And again, it just comes down to turnovers. It's always will be the case with this team. The 2024 Las Vegas Raiders will have lost almost every game that they have lost because they lose the turnover battle. This team is not good enough as currently constructed to overcome turning the ball over 4 times. And of course, the Rams in this game scored 20 points off of turnovers. They did not score a single point when they started the possession with a punt or coming out at halftime, which is, I mean, that is just par for the course for the Raiders. And as you guys start joining in the chat here, I need your thoughts on all this. What is your thoughts on this current Raiders regime, the players involved? Are we really this bad? Is it an injury thing? Is it a combination of bad free agent acquisitions? And we're going to get into polls right now as we look at the stats for this game, because the stats for this game, again, I don't think I'm crazy to say this is the first, or this is the worst Raiders loss I've seen in a long time. And okay, before I get into the stats for this game, let me explain myself. Let me explain myself. Let me explain myself. The reason why I think this was the worst Raiders loss is because, again, your quarterback being Gardner Minshew, Aiden gets hurt second drive. A lot of the excitement of this game was, and to be frank, a lot of the excitement of the rest of the season was to at least see if Aiden could give us anything, right? Because Gardner's just not it. We know this. Aiden goes down, and then for 3.5 quarters, it's just a nightmare to watch. It's uninspired. There's a lack of preparedness offensively to even try to muster up anything with Gardner Minshew. Luke Getsy started calling plays as if it was a rookie 7th-round draft pick in there, just handing the ball off, screen pass. Minshew turnover after turnover, and at a certain point, it made me realize that, as someone who makes videos on YouTube and as someone who talks about the Raiders 1 p.m. Eastern every Monday on Bleacher Report, it started to seep into my brain that I was going to have to come on here and talk about the same thing every single week until the season's over. Yep, we turned the ball over and lost another game. Yep, this other team is not very good. Yeah, we need a quarterback. And it started to seep into my brain, and I was like, "Oh my god, it's only week 7. Like, this is going to continue." And then you blink, and you're down 5 points with 2 minutes to go. And everything in your body tells you you're not winning this game. You're not going to go down and score. It's not going to happen, right? And of course, Gardner Minshew throws an interception on the last drive, and we lose the game. The crazy thing about that last drive is that we didn't gain a single yard. Not a single yard. And that's the microcosm of the season. Despite all the injuries we dealt with, despite 4 turnovers in which the Rams scored all their points off of, we lose the game by 5 points. And that's, again, why I think it was the worst loss of the season. It's a loss that makes you realize that this isn't happening this year. And what do I mean by happening? Winning enough games to even think about making the playoffs. That ship is sailed. You better get ready to make a top 5 pick. I see people saying we're gonna need to trade up for a quarterback. No, we're not. We're gonna be right there in the thick of things. We're going to be right there in the thick of things. So as I bring up the stats here, and I'm also going to bring up my first poll, because we'll just talk about Gardner Minshew right now and we'll just get it out of the way. That was the worst quarterback performance I've seen by a starting quarterback in a Raiders uniform in a long, long time. So my question to you guys is this: who should start for the Raiders moving forward? Because you can't run this guy out there again, in my opinion. So I'm going to read some of the comments here. We've seen Lane Kiffin send a kicker out for a 76-yard field goal. This is nothing. That's a good point. That is funny. Rebuilding since 2003. AP's 4th down call would be crazy. I didn't hate punt or kicking the field goal there. I mean, he was right. We got the ball back. And by the way, this poll, if you want a free agent option, comment below who you think that should be. I think Ryan Tannehill's available. I mean, again, cannot be worse than Gardner Minshew. If we need a QB last offseason to get one, then why would we get one now? Okay, well, I mean, we'll talk about the QB situation. We'll talk about it right now. Yeah, I don't disagree, or I don't think I'm crazy to say that that was the worst quarterback performance I've ever seen in a Raiders uniform in a long, long time. And as I bring up the stats here, I mean, 15 for 34, 154, 3 picks, no touchdowns, and a fumble that, yes, was his fault. People will tell you it wasn't his fault. He got hit from the blind side. Guys, that's the job of a quarterback, is to know where the blitz is coming from because you watch film, and to slide the protection and to keep a running back in or another tight end. That's how football's played. So, yes, that's Gardner Minshew's fault. Aiden O'Connell wasn't taking any blindside hits. Would we have won this game if Aiden O'Connell was in the game the whole time? Yeah, we would have. Because I'm sorry, but I would bet a lot of money that he wouldn't have been accountable for 4 turnovers. 4. He played the best defense in the league last year and threw 1 pick in garbage time. Aaron Rodgers threw 2 picks last night. One wasn't his fault, bounced right off of Garrett Wilson's chest. Devontae probably ain't too happy to be in New York either, but we're not going to talk about people who don't play for the Raiders. And the votes are flooding in. 17% say Gardner Minshew should start next season. That is an insane number. It should be 0.0%. Carter Bradley, I mean, it just can't get worse, right? Like 15 for 34. You don't think Carter Bradley's going to be anything, but it's like it doesn't matter. Just throw him in there. I don't know if you throw him in there against the Chiefs next week, but again, it can't get any worse. And yeah, that's right. We play the Chiefs and the Bengals the next 2 games. We are staring the barrel down to be 2-7. An easy breezy 2-7. Yeah, I agree. There's no vibe in Las Vegas. Okay, we got a comment here. Although the QB play has been horrible, let's focus on the O line. I don't believe Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes could produce behind this line. I don't disagree that the line has been bad. However, Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes wouldn't have been responsible for 4 turnovers. And all you got to do sometimes is manage the game and you win. And maybe it's not the worst thing in the world that we lost. And I am 100,000% anti-tank. I want to win every game we play, and I'm going to continue to want to win every game we play. But at least we still got a decent draft pick out of this. So let's talk about other people other than the quarterback, because I'm just not going to spend another single second on whatever that was yesterday by Gardner Minshew. Alexander Mattison looks decent. Zamir White has lost his starting job. He's never going to be a starting running back for the Raiders again unless there's an injury. 4 yards of carry. That's not terrible. Trey Tucker had a nice little end around. We almost scored on that, but of course, Colton Miller and Brock Bowers blocked the same person, and he doesn't score. Might have cost us the game. Brock Bowers, 10 for 93. Let's talk about Brock Bowers as I close this poll. Brock Bowers, thank God for you, because there would be no reason to watch this football team if not for you. 45% say Carter Bradley. Unbelievable. Let's talk about Brock Bowers because we need to talk about something positive. Let's just start commenting about Brock and let's pretend that he's playing quarterback. Brock Bowers is an absolute stud. There's no doubt about it. Tom Telesco was right in terms of his evaluation of that player in particular. However, I think this is a question that should be asked because there's been a lot of talk about, should we have moved heaven and earth to get a quarterback in this draft? Even though a generational talent was staring right down at the Las Vegas Raiders with the 13th pick last year. The stat yesterday was Brock Bowers has the most catches by a rookie tight end since the year 2000, I believe. Get used to every week saying Brock Bowers has the most blank since blank. He is easily the best tight end in the league right now. And Tom Telesco, I think, understood that maybe this team is more than a draft away from contention, especially because they tried to move up to get a quarterback. That's what people say anyway, and it just didn't work out. Should they have really moved up heaven and earth to get Michael Penix? I don't know. The jury's still out on Penix, and it's going to be out for a while. But Brock Bowers is a stud, and I do believe that was the right draft choice. Now, this next upcoming draft, you have to find a way to put yourself in the position to not only get a quarterback, but the quarterback, especially in the mind and eyes of Tom Telesco. Because I don't know if Antonio Pierce is going to survive until next offseason. I don't know that. And I don't know if it's the right move to fire him. But someone's got to pay for this season, right? And it's not going to be Tom. I know he was the one who brought Gardner Minshew in, but it's not going to be him. It just is what it is. It might be Antonio Pierce. It's probably going to be Luke Getsy too. Bowers was best player available. The 2025 QB class is far more elite. We suck in every draft. We don't suck in every draft. I mean, last draft was pretty good. They couldn't move up for a quarterback, so they went for the best player available. I'm not mad. Best player pick, light years better than Michael Mayer. Getsy was calling fades to Tucker in the end zone like he was Devontae Adams. Bowers is a beast. Yeah, I mean, it's a problem. I'm trying to think if there's anything else to say about this game in particular. The penalties, not good. Not good. And speaking of draft classes and contention or lack thereof, because last year we went 8-9 with an absolute dumpster fire of a season. And by the way, I agree with you guys. It is definitely Brock Bowers was definitely the right pick. Last year we went 8-9, and the games that we won and the way the team played, it got Antonio Pierce the job, right? And they decided to quote unquote run it back and get a veteran quarterback, or maybe Aiden will take the leap. And it didn't work out. And we've dealt with a lot of injuries this year. Christian Wilkins, Marcus Epps, Divine Diablo, Aiden O'Connell now. Devontae didn't play for a lot of it. Jacoby didn't play for a lot of it. So, a lot of turnovers, a lot of penalties, and that's on Antonio Pierce. But I do think in some regards he was kind of dealt a not great hand. So here's two questions I want to pose to you guys. Okay. The first one is this. Just how close are the Raiders to contention? And I know this might be a laughable question sitting here at 2-5. But I want to remind you of the Houston Texans a couple years ago. What were they? 3-13 or 3-14, 4-13. Second pick in the draft, dumpster fire. Just fired Lovie Smith after 1 year. They won the last game of the year to lose the first pick in the draft to the Carolina Panthers. And no one thought they were close to contention or winning the division. And with one draft and one free agent class, they completely flipped this thing on its head. Now, DeMeco Ryans seems to be a good coach, and that's where we'll talk about the coaching aspect of it all in a second. But my thought process, and I made a YouTube video about this, okay? Tom Telesco's master plan. I think he evaluated the roster along with AP, and they thought, let's try to run this thing back. We got a lot of weapons. We got Devontae, and we got Trey, and we got Zamir. This is, again, in the offseason when we thought everything was going to be perfect. And we got the stacked defense. Let's go get Christian Wilkins. Let's go get a veteran like Garner who just won 9 games. Let's see what we can do. Okay? And this was after they realized they couldn't get up for Jane Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury left, because that's what they tried to do initially. That's the word on the street, is that they tried to get Jane Daniels, didn't work. So they're like, let's run it back. So they tried to run it back, didn't work. Okay, didn't work. Get rid of Devontae, get a decent draft pick for him. Get rid of all his salary. Now you got $110 million in cap space. You're going to have a high draft pick, just like the Houston Texans now. If they hit on the quarterback, and Tom Telesco has had a proven track record of being in the room when quarterbacks were selected that were the right choice, whether that was an Andrew Luck with Bill Polian or Telesco was an assistant, or whether that was him drafting Justin Herbert. He's 2 for 2. We'll say 1 for 1. You don't want to give him credit for Andrew Luck? Okay, whatever. Understandable. He's 1 for 1. If he can hit on this next quarterback for the Raiders, and you plug him in there, and right away things start to be like, okay, this guy's good. You sign a wide receiver like a T. Higgins. You hit on another draft class. DJ Glaze and Jackson Powers Johnson, rookie lineman, only get better. Christian Wilkins comes back. Malcolm Kuntz comes back. You use some of that cap money that you have getting rid of Devontae to re-sign a Trayvon Merrick, who was great last night, to re-sign a Nate Hobbs, who was great yesterday. Not last night, yesterday. I do think there is a chance for this rebuild to speed up. But it's a big if, and the massive if is if you hit on the quarterback, because it doesn't matter the weapons you have. If you've got somebody like Gardner Minshew throwing them the football, even Aiden O'Connell throwing in the football, you're not going to compete. So I do think we are a little bit closer than you might be feeling in this current moment. However, it just comes down to Tom Telesco being able to pick the right quarterback, and then trusting whoever is the head coach next year and whoever is the offensive coordinator to be able to develop this guy. So as I bring up whoever's going to be the head coach next year, the consensus is a quarterback and another good draft class away. I don't disagree with that. I don't think we're not even remotely close. I don't think we're just a quarterback away. I think we're somewhere in the middle. Let's see what people are saying. We are a coach away. Texans are a great example. They got a good coach. Look at the Commanders. Yep, the Commanders, that was a quick change. And a team like the Commanders, like that organization is kind of dysfunctional like we are. But you hit on the quarterback and then all that goes out the window. Boom. It's like, okay, this is a pretty stable organization. You just got to find the right guy. Shador for the win. Raiders need new ownership. I think Brady will have a lot to do with the quarterback next year. And look, I think Tom can get a good QB for us. I do think it's also a good thing that Tom Brady's going to be in Mark Davis's ear. I think Mark Davis is like, I'm making the wrong decisions here. I need help. And who better to get the greatest football player of all time on in your staff, right? I like this. Need a quarterback, a center, a safety, and probably a linebacker at minimum. That's doable in one draft if you're smart and get a little bit lucky. And again, we got $100 million in cap space. So keep some of your homegrown guys like Hobbs and Coots and Merrick. Look for another running back, a lineman, a middle linebacker in the draft, right? A center. And then go get your quarterback, and then let's see what happens. This thing might be rocking and rolling. But here's the last thing I want to talk about, because if you do draft that quarterback, as I close this poll, if you do draft the quarterback, do you now trust Antonio Pierce to develop that said quarterback? Because again, I don't think it's entirely his fault how this season's gone. But someone has to be responsible for how truly bad this NFL product is. So I've got some options here. Antonio Pierce being one of them. If you had your choice, your pick of the litter, who would be the Raiders head coach in 2025? This is not what is most likely. Who would you want? And I brought up the Texans. We got Bobby Slowick, the Texans offensive coordinator. We got Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator. Antonio Pierce. And then the other option, which is common, who else you would be thinking about? There's a Bill Belichick out there. There's a Mike Vrabel out there. What do you think? And I'm reading a Bleacher Report article right now that said Raiders noted shift in Adams' attitude in March after Gardner Minshew signing. I mean, that is all the evidence you need that proves to the fact that Devontae Adams wanted Aiden O'Connell to start. Doesn't matter, whatever. Or at least for us to go get somebody else, Kirk Cousins, whatever. Again, okay, even if Ben is quote unquote not leaving, it's not about likelihood. It's about who you would want. And I think he would leave if you offered him a big time contract. Mike Vrabel, I see. Yeah, okay. I was a big supporter of Antonio Pierce getting this job, especially after the Chiefs game. especially after how he got guys like Jack Jones to play last year. It seemed as though we found our guy. And people are quick to say Dan Campbell went 3-13 his first year. People were making fun of him in the press conferences, yada yada yada. It just feels like the games should be more competitive. Not in terms of like the final score, but like it just feels like this is not a well-oiled machine. And you could be a well-oiled machine even if you don't have good players. I mean, look at the Rams, a team we just played. They have nothing. I couldn't tell you half of those players on their team they were rolling out. But they just found a way. They just look like a button-up organization. And I do think a guy like a Ben Johnson coming from the Dan Campbell coaching tree, an innovative young offensive mind, if he comes to you and says, "This is the salary that I want. It's 5 years, $80 million to be the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. Me and Tom Telesco are gonna handpick the quarterback. We're gonna develop this guy. We're gonna be a new ingenuitive offense, and we're gonna bring this fun style of football to the Raiders." I think Mark Davis and Tom Brady and Tom Telesco need to have a big time conversation about why we wouldn't take that guy over Antonio Pierce. Because again, it's not all Antonio Pierce's fault. But if there are better options out there, you need to consider them because we cannot draft a quarterback without people in position to be able to develop them. Right? That's half the battle. Jordan Love would not be as good as he is today if it wasn't for Matt LaFleur. Jared Goff would not be as good as he is today without Sean McVay. The coach is important. Look at what Shane Steichen did with Gardner Minshew last season. Cliff Kingsbury, Jaden Daniels. I do not see a world right now where I go Shador Sanders and Antonio Pierce. That was the combination that did it. Again, I could be wrong, and the season is not over. I want to see how competitive this team is. I want to see what they do at the quarterback position to try to shake things up. Because I'll tell you right now, if they roll out Gardner Minshew these next 4 to 6 weeks with Aiden out, you don't have a single win on your calendar. We are 2-5 right now. We will be 2-11 if Gardner Minshew plays the next 6 games. And maybe that's okay because again, that helps you get with a higher draft pick. But I don't know if Antonio Pierce survives a 4-13 season after going 8-9 last year. I don't know if he does, regardless of whether that's the right move. And I do think Ben Johnson is an intriguing head coaching prospect. And Slowick is there too. And then you got guys like Vrabel and Belichick out there. I don't think I would want Belichick, but he is technically probably the greatest coach to ever live. And as I read the chat here, we can't just keep firing coaches. I understand, Donuts Duncan. I get it. I agree, but the Texans did the same thing. Lovie Smith 1 year, D'Amico the next. And it worked out for them. Fire Luke Getsy. Tom loves Ben Johnson. Jack Del Rio was fine, and we got rid of him. Don't disagree with that. I think AP can be a good coach, but there's going to be some growing pains. Are we patient enough to let him go through them? That is the million-dollar question. McDaniels had us in the hunt with less. You agree? I mean, McDaniels at least had Derek Carr. Derek Carr was light years ahead of any quarterback we've had now. So that's something. That's something. But, as I wrap this up, I just would like to say this to everybody watching. Do your best to stay positive. I'm talking a lot about the Houston Texans because the Houston Texans were in the same position. They were terrible. They fired a first-year head coach. They hit on a good draft. Caserio, great GM. Will Anderson, CJ Stroud, blah, blah, blah. The rest is history. And now they're rocking and rolling. So maybe, just maybe, we can have a Houston Texans, Jaden Daniels type flip of the switch here And it's about Tom Telesco making the right moves, which he's shown so far in this past draft. And it's about who's going to be that quarterback to develop him. If they really believe Antonio Pierce is the guy and that this is not all his fault, which I believe it's not all his fault, I just don't know if he's the guy. And I think I'd be more comfortable with a Slowick or a Ben Johnson or a Mike Vrabel trying to right the ship here at this point in time. Although it's a long season, and let's see how competitive the team looks moving forward. Right? That's the best we can do is just compete. I want to win every game. I'd love to beat the Chiefs next week, but if Gardner Minshew's a quarterback, I just don't see a world in which that's even remotely possible. And I don't even know if it's worth bringing in a Tannehill or whatever. Maybe just run out Carter Bradley and just see if he can just run around and make some plays. Didn't think this is where we'd be this point in the season, but here we are, and we're going to do it together. We're going to do it together. So if you like what you see here, head on over to YouTube, youtube.com/ALLaBorde Raiders. I'm on there all the time, talking weekly, daily about, frankly, a nightmare of a season. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.